another episode of the Jolly Green John. I hope everybody's doing all right today. I wanted to wait. Just a couple of days ago, I did a breakdown of my take on the Eagles' offensive depth chart. But I knew that the hot topic of the day or the week was Hassan Reddick. I wasn't sure if what was happening with Hassan was going to be just a draft day thing, waiting it out from now till draft day, which is late April. But I knew something was brewing with Hassan. Hassan Reddick, like I said, Reggie White. If I had to list off my top three greatest Eagles of all time, I guarantee you, the majority of them, 2 out of 3 would be defenders. Philadelphia is a defensive-oriented town. So it's one of those cities where it's all about aggression, all about the attack, all about the action. So when I think about Hassan Reddick, it takes me back to where I wanted to start today, which is the importance of defense in Philadelphia. And the reason why last year was so disappointing was not necessarily because the Eagles lost. Remember, the Jolly Green John is not here to talk that Colin Cowherd chatterbox stuff to you. No, I'm here to talk to you about Philadelphia Eagles. It's the Philadelphia Eagles issue last year had nothing, in my opinion, little to do with the collapse. It was what was behind the collapse. And what was behind the collapse? Drum roll. The defense. The defense was weak. The defense was irrelevant. The defense was soft. The defense was non-impactful. And the Philadelphia Eagle fans can give you 2 things a season and they'll be fine. Coach Sirianni could have saved his job by doing 2 things: blitzing and beating Dallas. You blitz, you show a tough defense, you can go 1-16. You can go 2-16 by showing a tough defense and beating the Dallas Cowboys. And the city of Philadelphia wants you to stay around in a lifetime. That's what kept Buddy Ryan around so long. He had a tough defense. They were snarling, beating up on Dallas, having a good time fighting and scratching. But the offense was Randall Cunningham and a subpar experience. And when you had Reggie White, the Clyde Simmons, the Gang Green, that's what kept Buddy Ryan's tenure so long. Of course, he was a great coach, but a lot of it was the toughness of his defense. So defense is a very sensitive place in Philadelphia. Again, if I had to name my top 5 Eagles of all time in no specific order, it would have to include, my personal list would have to include Brian Dawkins, Reggie White, Nick Foles. And then the final 2 spots, of course, would be up to you to say Chuck Bednarik or, Tommy McDonald, whatever you feel, LaShawn McCoy, McNabb, whatever you feel would fit in those places. Terrell Owens, no, I would not put Terrell Owens in my top 5 at all. But that it's about defense. And even when I say that, I said that it was Reggie White and Brian Dawkins. And after Nick Foles, the first name that came out of my mouth was Chuck Bednarik, a 2-way guy. So you're like, it's always about toughness in this city. So what does that have to do with anything? It has to do with Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, we're talking about him in past tense as an Eagle. But let's split this conversation in 2 pieces. The one side of the conversation is the guy is moving around a lot. A red flag that I did pick up from Colin Cowherd, even though I just threw him under the bus a few moments ago. He said something really unique about free agents and dating. And he was like, if you have a girl or a young woman or a young man even who's constantly dancing around different relationships, constantly finding themselves at the altar but not finishing, constantly finding themselves with the same system, date for a few months, break up, date for a few. Okay, there's a reason why they're single. You have somebody who is constantly changing teams, and they might be a dynamic player. Jamal Adams, Hassan Reddick, Jalen Ramsey. You find these dynamic players, but for Odell Beckham Jr., but for some reason, these players find themselves moving around a lot. And so what you end up doing is there's the reaction. The reaction is, oh my goodness, this player has landed in my city. Oh my goodness, this player is now in that city. Terrell Owens, we just said his name, right? Terrell Owens is now in my city, but there's a reason why Terrell Owens is moving in your city where Chad Johnson's already there. There's a reason why Hassan Reddick is moving to your city where Fletcher Cox is already there. There's a reason why Odell Beckham Jr. is moving to your city while Aaron Donald is still there. There's a reason why certain players, or Cooper Kupp, if we're going to stick to the same side of the ball, there's a certain reason why players move. So I would say the two things about Hassan Reddick is, one, you had to consider the fact that he moves around before he got to Philly. And number two, what is Howie Roseman thinking in the potential trade compensation he's getting from Hassan Reddick? Now, when he sends Hassan Reddick packing, you're talking about a 2026, I believe a 2025, but Adam Schefter miscalculated in past tense 2023. But you're talking about future draft picks that can be a compensatory pick from a third round to drop down to a second. Okay. So he's thinking about the future. I'd rather drop a 30-year-old defensive end who gives me double-digit sacks for the past 3 seasons and get a pick down the line. Now, he's investing because the Jets are going to provide Hassan Reddick the playing time necessary, and I think Hassan's going to make the deal right on his end because he's going to want to play. The incentive is for him to get another contract, to where the Jets are going to get that compensatory pick to turn it down from a third to a second. That's easy work. But Howie Roseman said, you know what? Let's move off this guy. And let's stick with the guy who's in-house. Now, Eagle fans, we got to be careful. We get so excited about big free agent signings, and then we get, at the same time, we always talk about building from the inside out. Now, Josh Sweat may not be Hassan Reddick, but Josh Sweat is he's a homegrown guy. We drafted him. We made him. Just like Mamai Lata, our entire offensive line. We created this line. We created this offense. We created this defense. Let's build it from the inside out with our own guys. It's cheaper that way. Okay, so Hassan Reddick is gone to the Jets. I guess we have some deals up there with our old front office guys, probably still up in New York, and that's probably why we made this deal and gave him a star player. I'm gonna miss Hassan Reddick. I'm gonna miss the thumb dropping down on big plays. I miss Hassan Reddick already. But I've learned from the Andy Reid, when they turn 30, they're dirty, era, where every time a Joe Banner free agency market was going on under his watch, he dropped 30-year-olds like a bad habit. And I'm so used to seeing players come and go that I'm surprised when we get players like Dallas Goedert extended. We get players like Jason Kelce extended, Fletcher Cox extended, Brandon Graham extended. This is a different era of Eagle free agency from the Midnight Green 2000s. So that's enough about that. I promise you defense. And here's defense. Okay, so we're talking about the defensive line now. They have a 3-4-D, a base 3-4-D. I'm assuming ESPN's roster is slating us to have a Fangio 3-4 defense. Remember the wide 9? That was a nightmare. It's a nightmare of a defense. I'm hoping what I'm hoping, we talked about Kellen Moore a little bit before I got into it, but I really do hope that Vic Fangio is going to give us a coherent defense. I don't know if I really want an aggressive blitzing defense. That's a different era. But I do want pressure and I do want coherent play. So let's talk about this. But I want to work from the let's work from the outside in, because there's a lot of new names in the defensive front, but the defensive backs are pretty stabilized. Darius Slay, Josh Jobe, James Bradbury, Zach McPherson, Kelly Ringo. On this list, I do not see Eli Ricks. I like, and Isaiah Rodgers coming up as well. I like Darius Slay coming back. He's a strong locker room personality. I already mentioned 2 episodes ago, I'm actually a fan of bringing back James Bradbury off the philosophy that it's cheaper to keep her. But I do believe he needs to be supplanted. I think James Bradbury needs that Brandon Graham deal where you come in spaced out because he was getting cooked. But remember, we talk about this. James Bradbury does play bad football last season. He played horrible, but you have to play in it's not a one-to-one thing. This is a structured defense. The defense was terrible last year because the coordinator was terrible, awful, and the preceding defensive coordinator was not really that good at either. So you have a player in there that has a system that's not very built on cohesiveness. It's not really built on competent play. And James Bradbury had no safety above the top. He had Sidney Brown, a rookie, who's not only smaller, highly aggressive, which means he over pursues, and he's not in his spots. And so Bradbury was getting cooked because he had nobody over the top to help him.